Hi, I'm Tom Lau. I'm the director of the Physicians UBI Awareness, and also we put together a couple of sites, Doctors UBI and DoctorsOzone.com. Got some exciting news. This is Vasogen. Vasogen was a biotech company that existed over the last about 15 years and produced some amazing information for us who work with ozone and with ultraviolet light. Unbeknownst to us, they were working in the conventional medicine area, working on phase 3 FDA trials. But what they did is they produced peer-reviewed studies in a number of journals, transplantation, this one's on renal ischemia, neuromodulation on inflammatory role, American Journal of Cardiology dealing with atherosclerosis, and a number of other studies. They published those, but more importantly, they came from these. This stack is a stack of patents, over 24 patents they produced. And within each patent, this one's on autoimmune disease, they have studies. These studies, anywhere from 1 to 8 studies, are contained in each of these patents. This is on autoimmune, this one's on atherosclerosis, this was on traumatic pain syndrome, this one's on nitric oxide and vasodilation. They did international patents, they did US patents. We've got the data now, which is exciting news for any of the physicians who are using ozone and ultraviolet light. I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining that with a PowerPoint and giving you information that hereto we haven't had. It should be exciting news for all of you physicians. Ozone and ultraviolet light. There is truly an untold story. Just listen. In the medical world, there's about 30,000 ozone physicians. I've heard up to 45,000. In the United States, we only have about 250. There is a lot of research, a lot of investigations, fairly substantial. Dr. Bacci from Italy has done a lot of work in this over the last 25 years, 400 different medical studies that he's got his name on, and he's produced a couple of really good books on medical ozone. In the United States, we see us using major and minor autohemotherapy and prolozone, pretty much all we do. Ultraviolet blood irradiation is a little different story. There are about 3,000 worldwide, about a tenth, maybe 300 in the US, fair number. We don't have a lot of research and investigations. It's mainly historical, somewhat undefined. Not really much going on currently, although there's some. And of course, the therapy has been revamped with new machine, more power, new cuvette, more surface area and it mixes it, and also a new therapy adding it to saline. Truly, these are synergistic in how they work. Ozone and UBI need to be used together, or ozone and UV light. Just a few moments, a few doctors will speak out showing how they've seen UBI and ozone work together.
I've been using the UV therapy for almost a year. I often add ozone to the treatment as well.
Pull the blood out, mix it with the ozone and run it past the ultraviolet tube into the system.
And I find that the combination of ozone and UBI is more potent than ozone alone.
And the results we're getting are phenomenal.
It's been one of the best things I've ever added to my practice. It really helps me be successful, and my patients trust me more because they're feeling better.
And this is one of the things that gives me outstanding clinical results.
It's been fantastic to have in my practice all these years, and I highly recommend it.
Ultraviolet blood irradiation has been around for quite a while, and it's something that we believe, we at the Cancer Control Society believe is extremely beneficial tool
to improve the process so that instead of needing 5 or 10 treatments, many people say 1 or 2 treatments with serious infections where they've been sick for a long time is miraculously improved.
It's a foundation of our cancer protocols.
This technique is vastly superior to the old technique of using 250 cc's of blood.
I bought a German piece of equipment, a Umatron, but it was always challenging to use, and it was too much of a hassle, so we quit using the Umatron.
I have introduced UBI and Ozone into my clinic, and that has made such a big difference to integrative medicine, to supporting my patients.
Vasogen. A Canadian-based biotech company started back in the 90s to use ozone, UV light, and heat, and they produced a therapy that they developed over the next 15 years. You can see by this report, they're looking to go after chronic heart failure, and they devised an outpatient procedure that only took about 30 minutes. They were on the stock exchange, raised about $225 million, we're guessing from some of the data. 100 employees, 60 laboratory and clinical studies, and that's the important one. We've now got data. They secured over 24 patents with this procedure. They passed the phase 2 FDA trials on both chronic heart failure and peripheral arterial disease. Celicade. Well, this is the machine right here that they used, and they have a little picture here showing the blood inside. But what was the protocol? First, they took 10 cc's of blood. They injected it into this little sterile container and put it inside of this machine. It was heated to 108 degrees, subjected to UV light. Ozone was bubbled through it for about 3 minutes. Then it was re-injected intramuscularly. Wow, this was quite a thing, and there's a lot of places out there saying, put your money in this. They're going to make it big. Here they passed their phase 2 trial with FDA. Wait, I thought ozone and ultraviolet light didn't have any place in conventional medicine. In fact, I heard ozone was just a toxic gas and had no medical purposes. Well, Vasogen proved differently. They had phase 2 trials and phase 3 trials on PAD called Simpatico. They had 533 patients and testing walking distance and quality of life. On the phase 3 trials for the chronic heart patients, they had 2,114 patients in 175 clinics. Why'd they choose chronic heart failure? #1 killer in America, heart disease. But we've already got major and minor autohemotherapy without heat. In 1961, Hans Wolff introduced the major and the minor autohemotherapy. It was non-patentable. Basically, they just took out blood for the major. They took out 200 cc's, added ozone, and intravenously put it back in. For the minor autohemotherapy, they just took out 5 cc's, mixed it, shook it up with ozone, and injected it intramuscularly. 50 years later, it still works. Immune modulation therapy is what they called it. It allowed 100 researchers 8 years to conduct studies on UBI and ozone, something we didn't even know was going on. And now, here's the things they worked on. Platelet inhibition, autoimmune disorders, nitric oxide or vasodilation, traumatic pain disorder, preconditioning stress, atherosclerosis and chronic heart failure, and a host of other things that they worked on. We've got all the data that we need now. They made it to the big time. Ozone and ultraviolet light. 24 patents over the 10-year time. They got CE approval in Europe. They partnered with the German biotech sales firm, and the financial analysts were saying buy in this company. Well, blow number 1. 2005, they were working with peripheral arterial disease, and they stopped at Simpatico because of lack of effect. But look how often they were doing. They did 8 treatments, 10 cc's each, over a 6-month period. Blow 2 came when a claim Their chronic heart failure study showed it did not meet its primary endpoint. Again, I kind of look at it just being in this business and say, well, 8 treatments, 10 cc's over 6 months, maybe that's not enough. Head researchers looked at this, and they did find something very interesting. It was not a failure in all ways, because if they had no prior history of heart attack, or they were class 2 patients, they demonstrated a 31% reduction in the risk of death or hospitalization in the Sellocaid group compared to the placebo. Pretty significant. But it wasn't enough. Here's what happened. The company had, in 2009, only had 1 full-time employee. Vasogen then agreed to be taken over by another firm. They had some other products of interest. So Vasogen's gone, but the studies are a treasury of data. Ozone and UV light therapy. Wow, now we've got carefully crafted studies with actions explained on so many different areas. Some of you are asking, what about the heat? Well, if we're just going to use ozone and UBI, shouldn't we also heat the blood? Well, you know, they showed in the earlier studies, ozone was effective, UV light was effective, they're synergistic, basically better results together than alone. But compared with the heat, it wasn't really shown to help. I'm not sure why they added it. This is just one study, and I'm just quickly going to go over, but the idea here is they measured here. Here is heat, ozone, and UBI. Here is ozone and UBI. Why? They have better survival rate. And then the next one down is ozone with heat. Then we did UV with heat, and then the placebo down here. On this slide, again, the best is lower here, and we see that ozone and UV light did the best. What do we conclude? If you're using with chronic disorders, don't use it alone. Hey, you guys with UBI, chronic disorders, use ozone along with UBI. Very simple to add. Just to comment on infections, you know, there weren't any patents for Vasogen for infections. And I kind of scratched my head and thought, why is that? Well, we know UV light kills bacteria and virus, attenuates them, sends them back in, creates a kind of a vaccine response. There's a history of using it. MRSA, Hep C, sepsis, number of areas. But since prior art talks of UBI and infections, no patent is then available. It's already been taken. Another thing that I get into is a lot of ozone people out there, they wonder, well, ozone, it does so much, it oxygenates the blood. This is Dr. Bacci in his one paper on the ozone paradox. He says this: the therapeutic value of oxygenation is irrelevant. Another one is that ozone kills bacteria and virus, but once it's in the blood, ozone cannot inactivate bacteria, virus, and fungi in vivo. It's a mild enhancer of the immune system. So again, we see ozone doing some things, UBI doing some things, and they aren't the same, but they are synergistic. Immune modulation therapy. This is the comment by Bacci, and I put in UBI here, so just excuse that. It does seem that ozone, UBI, by acting on many targets can indirectly help in recovering functional activities gone astray because of a chronic disease, and if this interpretation is correct, ozone and UV therapy acts as a biological response modifier. Well, just to understand the data, what we've done is put together a lot of information that's available to you. linked it, the studies, the patents, and put them so you could work with them. There is a cover page explanation. There's a short synopsis of each patent, starting with the oldest, and then how that's significant for O3 UV therapy. And there's a layman's look at disorders. That's was also part of the patents. Then the full patents themselves, these are public domain. They're free to read. They contain the studies and the mechanisms of action. And there's a brief comment to Vasogen from the news. These should be on the websites in time, or you can contact me and I will send these to you via email. Here are a few of the studies. There were over 24. Some were combined, some were older, some were duplicates, but we took about 19 of them and worked with them. Well, the patents are made up of a number of things. Just briefly, there's an abstract, and then the claims. These show the pictures, the drawings, the data, field of invention, background of the invention, what the problem's been, and of course prior art is what's been going on ahead of this time. Summary of the invention, discussing actions and disorder, and then some of the biochemistry and what actually happens. This is in order in each of the patents. And examples then at the end are the actual studies that correspond to the drawing sheets. Mechanisms of action, I just took a few here. This one's kind of interesting. We need to realize UBI, ozone, safe. Platelets not damaged, no hemolysis. This was looking at platelet aggregation induced by ADP. One action. UV, didn't get any. Ozone, got a little. Look at the two together, 83.4%. This is why you're treating PAD or COPD and a number of those disorders. Here's patent number 4, and these are my numbers on them. Autoimmune disorders, they actually had 4 patents on this. It shows the stressors, UV and O3, cause an auto vaccine against rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, MS, lupus. At 30 active RA patients, they all responded. And Raynaud's, 9 treatments, all experienced reductions, and just exciting stuff for autoimmune world. Here's patent number 6. For those who want a little more detail to this, this is above my pay grade, so you can understand maybe the significance of some of these type of things. Here's patent number 7 again. I mentioned this is ischemia where they closed off the renal artery and for a period of time and then open it up, and these are on some rats to see how long they would live. Heat, ozone, UV, well, 50% lived a certain time. Look at the placebo down here, 25% lived. So yeah, that's a lot better. But look at ozone and UV light alone, 75%. That's really kind of exciting. And this is kidney function on those same rats. And again, you wanted lower here. And again, ozone and UV light is the one that really worked. What does it do? Just a real quick summary. Inhibits platelet aggregation, works on autoimmune, works with RSD, preconditioning stress, allows fights against further damage. So pre-op, they could do this for 5 weeks and it would actually help. Delays onset, retards progression, causes regression of atherosclerosis. Exciting. Graft versus host, inflammatory cytokines, skin ulcers, peripheral blood, blood-brain barrier, and CLL. Very positive effects. So there you have it. New studies validate UBI plus ozone, making a new area battling disease with O3 UV. Well, if you're not already, it's time for physicians to add ozone to their practice and UBI. There is a protocol available online. And there's a lot of information here. DoctorsOzone.com, DoctorsUBI.com. You're sure welcome to write me, Tom, at DRSUBI. Looks like drsubi.com. Or you can go into YouTube and type in UBI overview. You'll get some of the information there. And we are excited to see this get out. This information is vital. So let's all be successful with this. Use this information wisely. Thanks for listening.